Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Women in Math and STEM, where our mission is to reach out to as many professionals, aspiring professionals, students, whatever you name it. We try to reach out to them, who essentially support the initiative of bringing more women and young girls into the STEM field. So, with that being said, as always, feel free to open up the description or transcript to better follow along, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hello, and thank you so much for coming to the call today and talking with me. Just to sort of start off, do you mind walking us through your sort of educational, personal, academic journey to get you where you are today?
Yeah, so I'm Moomal. I'm originally from Pakistan. That's where I grew up. I went to high school there, and then for university, I went to Wharton. I did my undergrad in business analytics and statistics. And I worked at here and there. We had COVID in the middle, so I did some internships from home. And then I moved to the UAE and now I work in the government. So I work for the Central Bank of the UAE and we primarily work on external statistics and monetary policy for the country. I'm a junior analyst here, so I primarily do more statistics, data sciencey work, but also some economic research and some qualitative analysis.
And then I was sort of just wondering about how your background, your education, as well as your values, like affect your job or like affect your perspective on fintech.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think so there are two components to the question that you asked. There's background and then there's values. So in terms of background, I think it really helps having sort of a more globalized background, having experienced living in different countries, interacting with the political and economic climates in each of those countries. So I think when you work in the government or when you work on a project that is so early stages and as the ones that I work on here, it's very useful to know how developing countries versus a more developed country versus a country that's in a different stage of their economic journey is dealing with the same macroeconomic factors or external shocks. I think that allows you to how to have a more diverse view of the kind of policy responses that people devise in these situations. And then I think it also opens your mind up to, just um, it opens your mind to um, different experiences and yeah, but just in general, um, how government operates in different countries. And then in terms of values, I think one of my key values that I think has really helped me here is integrity. And integrity is obviously very important in any job that you work in, but particularly important when you work in the public sector, because a lot of the work that you do more directly impacts the people around you. And you have it's kind of so I know that public sector work is associated with more a higher impact, like I said, but then also more service for the citizens of the country that you're working in. So I think integrity is something that I need to I mean, consistently work on, and it's something that I need to think about on the daily.
And then I think you mentioned you grew up in Pakistan and then came to study at Wharton and now like work in the UAE with the UAE government. I was just sort of
Mm.
wondering what was the inspiration of sort of like traveling to so many different places and sort of like reaching out for this globalized background.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't know that I was going to go to Wharton until the day that I got accepted. So when I applied, I think I wanted to go to Columbia for economics. And then I realized that I wanted to study something that's a lot more STEM heavy and a lot more finance focused than the economics program at Columbia. So I picked Wharton. I think the only other school that I was considering was LSE in the UK. So honestly, it was not a decision that was like I didn't put a lot of thought into it. It wasn't premeditated. I knew I wanted to go to school, university abroad, and yeah, but it was um pretty impromptu. But then after university, I think I wanted to work in a space that is a little bit more fast-paced, because the UAE is in an earlier stage of their development, but is still a pretty fast progressing country. I think there's a lot more potential in what you can do at an early career position, compared to what you can do in other parts of the world where a lot of the work has been done and hiring is more structured, work is more systematic. So the duties that you can perform at work are kind of cut out for you, whereas here it's very flexible. I assume in like some years or a decade, it'll be at the position where work is more structured and your job is looks a lot like what it would look like in corporate America. But I think for the first few years of my career, I wanted to experience something that's a bit more dynamic.
I see. I was also just curious about like the challenges you might have encountered at work and sort of how you overcame those challenges.
Yeah, I think in terms of challenges, the most important thing is persistence, and that's kind of the key to what helps me. I think one of the biggest challenges I've encountered is sort of the cultural difference or the fit difference between studying in the US, in a very rigorous school, and then working in the public sector in a completely different country where the language of instruction is different, and sort of the day-to-day work is not as rigorous or high pressure and high stress as I'm used to. So I think that um, it's just been a little bit in the beginning, I think it was a little bit harder for me to adjust to this shift in culture. But honestly, the only thing is persistence. Like I said, you just have to you have to keep going back and then eventually you learn because a lot of the skills that I did learn in college, they either weren't needed or needed to be tweaked completely because it's just um, working in the government means adjusting to a particular pattern of work, particular culture of work, and I think there are no real skills that I needed there, technically, like in technical terms, but just to kind of like work at the same thing every day, and to kind of show up at the same thing every day, I think is the way to crack it. Yeah.
And then I was also just curious about if you sort of foresee any new advancements or new improvements in like your area of work within the next few decades or so.
Yeah, I think, like I said, the first few years of my career, maybe the first 3 to 4 years, I'd enjoy working in a space that is a lot more flexible, but then eventually I think I'd want to pivot into something that's more STEM. So I think at this stage in my career, I'm exploring branches that are more diverse. So, I work in economic research, I work in finance, I work in data analysis. So I'm kind of getting a taste of everything that is out there for me. Who knows? Maybe if you speak to me in like 5 to 6 years, I'll be working in something completely different. But at this stage, I think I'm pretty open. I do eventually want to do a master's and go on to do a PhD. So we'll see. I might end up working the same job, maybe just at a different position, or I might even end up working in like academia or something. So I'm just going with the flow, honestly.
And then sort of to end off, I was curious if you had any pieces of advice, recommendations, suggestions, honestly anything for students who are looking into studying finance, fintech, or something of the sorts.
Um, I think so I think there are two. One would be, I mean, I know that this doesn't apply to everyone, but to students who are considering a more STEM program, I think it's imperative to have some sort of data science skills, some sort of coding programming skills, and you should take at least one class in university that teaches you those skills because no matter what job you work at, if you have those from the get-go, You don't have to go to training through training or anything like that. You'll have an advantage. Like I get a lot of projects at work because I have those skills, even though I'm not in a primarily computer science heavy position. And then the second piece of advice would be to just like keep your mind open to whatever opportunities come your way. I think um many people restrict themselves after university and end up working kind of the same career that they see their peers working in, or a role that is characteristic of the university they go at, and then it's harder to break out of that kind of restricted box that you put yourself in. So if you keep your mind open and explore a lot of different options, you might end up working a career or going to a school that you did not think would be the right fit for you, and it ends up being a great choice.
Okay, thank you so much. It was absolutely phenomenal talking to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.